We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. And how the littlest things in the world ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal, but we've got to find a way to deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Power of How. I'm Matt Fulcheron. I'm here with Brendan Tassif.
What's up?
I'm here with Daniel Tirado.
Hola.
I'm here with my cat Penny. Was confused by all of this. My wife went out of town, and now it's just me and my kid. Me and my cat.
You and your lion.
Which is a great existence, but only if you have a wife that's out of town. A man with a cat is not respected. Even though there's nothing wrong with it.
A little creepy.
Yeah, not to be trusted.
Well, one cat's all right. A man with 3 cats, that's just odd.
That's weird.
It is weird.
There was a dude in my neighborhood growing up who had 10 plus cats.
No way.
He was
in Maryland.
His wife died. He lived
there
across
you go.
the street.
There you go.
And he just had upwards of 10 cats. And nobody talked about how weird it was. And as a kid, you're just like, this is great. There's a zoo across the street.
Yeah, it is strange, man. I don't have that kind of confidence.
When my mom met her current husband, he had like 4 dogs, and she had like 2 dogs, and then my older brother had a dog that he like gave her. So I remember the first time like I was done with college and I was moving back home, and I walked in and there was like 8 dogs, and I was like, what is happening right now?
I don't know, but I'm dying for somebody to break in. Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's going to be great for the shot.
Jesus Christ.
Right on cue.
I might have to put her in her room.
She's good.
So this cat gets put in the small room at least once a day.
Yeah.
Because she scratches, she bites, and this is when you're asleep.
Oh,
She
really?
rolls up on you. She puts her paw right on your face.
Yeah.
It's kind of sexy.
Nah.
Some scratches and bites in
Nah,
the middle of the night. I wish I had that.
We have, like, Neosporin is constantly on the grocery list.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because we constantly have to disinfect our wounds around here.
Wow.
It's alarming when you're not used to it. You're used to it.
Yeah.
But I've watched Penny a couple times, and I've been like woken up to her like scratching my hand. I'm like, what is happening?
And if you pet, it's like, how many licks does it get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? It's like you pet it's about 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and then she just like a snake is like, just like fucking goes for it.
You're like, oh, this is nice. This is so. Oh my god.
She gets by on cute, and she makes a lot of noises, so everybody likes her. As soon as there's several people that watch her because we go out of town so much, and I'll watch them or at a party or something. People come up and they know she likes to bite, and they're not scared of biting, so they just do this whole thing where they play with the cat. And they make the cat bite it, and they just reinforce that it's fun for the cat. So it's like my work is never done, as if you can train a goddamn cat. Your cats think that you live at their house.
Right.
Yeah. There was a study where they think that humans are just hairless, dumb cats.
Clumsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Which always boggles my mind. Like, if I pick you up and I put you in a room and I close the door,
Who's
in charge?
Who's the clumsy one?
And they still think, you're just doing me a service.
Right. Well, I could be thinking, carry me. No, but you know what I mean?
I know.
No, it's like when we see a dead squirrel, or when you hit a squirrel or whatever animal, you're like, why was a squirrel in the middle of the road? It's like, no, we created the roads, and we are in their environment.
Right.
There's no way that they are in our environment. So, and they're wild animals, man. And we're domesticating wild animals. And I remember I used to work in a pet shop years ago.
I love this scenario.
I was a pet shop boy.
Especially after that last clip we had.
Which one?
The one about the
mice
rats.
killing mice.
Oh, man. So, yeah, right. So I used to deal with, a lot of pet owners and manufacturers who, they all had their stories. And I had heard this great story about this a delivery guy who would just drop off the food for cats, and once he got attacked by the cat, and the cat would climb up to the corner of the apartment and just wait for him because he was waiting. He was hiding in the bathroom. He was hiding in the bathroom, so he climbed in the corner and just jumped him and attacked him.
Right.
And it's that's would you guys eat a cat? Would you guys eat like
If
would you eat cat?
during the
depends.
apocalypse,
Right.
I would
Yeah.
eat a cat.
Yeah.
Other than that, no.
No. Well, domesticated, I get it, but they're wild animals. It's like dogs as well, and it's strange.
Living in America in the current situation, I know it's ridiculous to go, I eat a cow,
Right.
but I draw the line at cat.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
absolutely
yes,
ridiculous.
Yes.
But knowing that about myself, I'm not willing to venture outside of that.
Well, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But if you had to.
If you had
Yeah, if
to.
you had
Right,
to, yeah.
right.
I'd eat you if I had
Yeah,
to.
thanks, man.
Well, yeah, because this cat,
Flattered. I'm delicious.
we're to the point where if we ran out of food or whatever,
Right.
The Last of Us, me and Penny are the Last of Us. She's gonna eat me in my sleep.
Right.
So that's what it's gonna come down to. And let's just hope it doesn't come down to that. And I'm almost gonna say no to this cat. Eating this cat because it's only going to let me survive another week or so.
Yeah, it's not
so I
good.
might as well just take one for
Wow.
the team.
She's all fur.
Yeah.
I have another great story from the pet shop from a customer. She told me this. She told me that she was in China once, and she saw like this window with a lot of puppies, and she walked in and she said, she didn't speak Mandarin or Cantonese, but she said, but I'd love to have that dog, She as much as she can, just like she pointed to that dog, I'll be back, bring the money and all that.
Right.
They told her to come back. She understood like in half an hour or whatever time, and she came back and they just handed her a bag. And she's like, "What is this?" She's like, "It's the dog that it was a butcher shop."
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
Where was this?
In China.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I missed that part of the story.
No. But she was devastated because she
Yeah.
felt like she killed a puppy.
Right.
But it was just because of the language barrier. Had she just known
Right.
to that it was well,
Well, there's some islands in Southeast Asia where guinea pig is like a really popular dish just because there's so many.
well, in Peru,
is it? Yeah.
Guinea, they're called cuy, which is really funny because cuy in French means testicles. So, right. So when I went to Peru for the first
Yeah.
time, like eat cuy, I'm like, what? It's hilarious,
Right.
And it's delicious, and it's great. The only thing that's very weird is because my uncle would bring a bunch of guinea pigs and they're kind of roasted, but I have no trouble eating them when they chop the head off. But when you see the head, it's like I can't even.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
devastating.
The head on anything. When
Yeah, I
you
was
see
right
that,
there.
when you
Right.
see the head on a pig.
Right.
I've never done the luau.
You've never done like a
No.
spit roast thing?
No.
Yeah.
It definitely changes
Yeah.
whether you're okay with it or whether you're
Right,
not. It
right.
definitely changes it.
Right.
Yeah, we
There's
did a couple of those.
Yeah, you don't want to see a face.
When I was a kid, it was like a summer, we'll do like a luau Hawaiian theme.
We'll
thing.
traumatize you kids.
And then
Yeah. Right.
my parents got a full 100-pound pig, and they got the spit roast set up and the whole deal.
Right, yeah.
And I just remember coming in the backyard and being like,
I got
Yeah.
one for you.
Tell me.
I went to my friend's farm. My dad had a friend who was a farmer.
Oh, no.
We went to the farm, and we're all walking around the farm. We walk in the barn, and there's 3 pigs hanging by their feet with their throats slit. Just no warning, just 3 dead pigs. See how they bleed. What?
They were gonna eat them.
They were going to eat them.
right.
But I'm like,
It's just a hobby, right?
but I'm like 5.
Right.
And there's no warning. It's just, and that's my dad's teaching. He's just like, well, that's what farms are like.
yeah, that's what happens.
Same
And
thing.
he was
yeah.
right.
And Saints.
But I've never walked into a room the same again.
My wife, she when she went to Egypt as a kid, they eat pigeons, so she would play with these pigeons because they would farm them. But not knowing that, so she befriended, she named the pigeon and everything. Then one day she sits down at dinner time and she's like, "What is that?" And it's like, well, that's the bird. That's your bird. And yeah. Can you imagine how devastated you must be as a kid?
Yeah.
And I think the grandfather just stepped out with either a brick or a hammer. and just came back and yeah, you got
Yeah.
it. Then she couldn't eat it, obviously. I think as soon as you establish a relationship with whatever animal,
Yeah.
I can't eat anything that I'm going to name or.
It's the name thing. It's a
yeah.
big, because my grandparents on my mom's side were like big farm people. Like not just like they weren't farmers, but they had a lot of open space in the Midwest and stuff. And they had animals and garden and stuff, but they would use that just for their own kind of stuff. Like they didn't farm it out, but they would use it like for their food.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing was my mom was like, you're not allowed to name the animals.
Yeah.
And that was the rule because as
Right.
soon as you name the animal.
Is this Pig
names.
3? Oh, God. I loved Pig 3.
So you can't. That was a big thing. Was you're not allowed to name it because as soon as she would name
It's
an
like
animal,
a Seinfeld episode.
they're like that's your pet now. Like now we can't do anything with that. So then she would just keep it as a pet.
Yeah, you don't name, man. You don't name.
Well, speaking of wild animals, this cat was actually a wild animal, and it hasn't recovered. This is a cat from Egypt who just, I think it's like Turkey out there. You ever seen that documentary on cats in Turkey? They just live out on the street. There's,
like in Italy.
There's hundreds
Italy
of
as
them.
well.
Yeah, they're just out there,
Yeah.
and they're like neighborhood cats.
Right.
Like people feed them or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, they don't live at anybody's house. And so one time, back in the day before weed was legal, and you had to text a stranger and they come in your apartment and deal you weed. I don't know if you've ever done this,
No.
but it's a horrible
No.
scenario. And you're like, am I really addicted to weed that I need a stranger in my apartment?
Right.
And the answer is yes.
Yes. I've only seen that in movies.
Right.
But
I've experienced it. And the weed guy came in and the cat is just sitting down there eyeing him while he's getting his weed out of the lockbox. And the guy just goes, "Is that a street cat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." The guy was terrified of the cat.
Wow.
The guy knew. The guy had street cat passed.
You could just you could feel it.
Yeah.
I went to go see a friend and she has a dog and I'm a huge dog guy, like grew up around dogs. This was the first incident ever in my life where she was like, you can't go near the dog. It's a pit bull, and apparently it was a fighting dog, and then she rescued it when she was working at like the Humane Society.
Yeah.
They brought him in, and he was a little puppy, and so and they were breeding it to fight, and so she rescued it. It was only maybe a year old, and now it's like 7 or 8, but it's so protective of her that she has it in. It's not even a cage. She like has like the whole back of her house fenced off. And I walk in and he's like freaking out. And I was like, oh, I love dogs. Like, I'll get him to like me. Like, I can get any dog to like me. And I literally took 2 steps towards the back and she goes, don't go near him.
Yeah.
You need to come around this way to go to the couch because he will jump. And this thing is like, the fence is like this tall. She's like, he'll jump over that to get to you. She's like, he will bite you. And I go, well, everyone says that. Like, oh, they don't want to get sued. I was like, I'm great with dogs. She goes, you don't understand.
he thinks he's Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon.
But she was like, you don't understand. Like, you can't go near him. And that was the first time in 34 years where I was like, I can't even like pet him or anything. And she's like, no, he's a guard dog.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You can't.
No, I love I love dogs. I love cats. I love animals. I have a problem with dog people like dog lovers and pet lovers. Because it almost feels like a cult. You know, they have their dog parks and everything, and just the way they socialize, they're just fucking weird people, man. They're just,
Some of them are assholes too.
Yeah, but I always think it's so strange that when you see a pet or a dog and everyone asks like what's his or her name, and nobody bothers to ask like what's the owner's name,
it's just
so
that.
strange.
People don't want to meet people.
No, you completely ignore
that
the
part.
owner.
I understand.
Right. I think that's how bad we are in a society that we just completely disregard the owner.
I never thought of that
and
until
we
you brought this
just
up.
go straight to the dog. And it's like it's weird because the owner's standing, you go down to like crotch level and you're petting this dog and you're talking to this dog and it's just so inhumane in many ways.
Well, it's funny too because
it is funny. It's very funny.
First of all, I think, and I'm not one of these people.
Right.
I don't really care about your dog. Like I'm just trying to
I'm
get
the
on
same
with my
way.
life.
Yeah.
But people are actually interested in the dog. They are not interested in the person at all. That comes from a genuine place. On top of that, The dog owner is much more comfortable talking about their dog than they are about themselves. So they'll never give a fake name for their dog.
Right.
But they might give a fake name for themselves.
That's true.
Like, why, all of a sudden they're going to get suspicious.
But you know what? I
Because the dog doesn't have a social security number and his identity can't be stolen.
But I also think that a lot of people, subconsciously or consciously or even maybe unconsciously use their dogs as a bridge to communicate or to have some form of contact with people. I knew a lot of, when I was in school, I had a lot of friends that, girls that would just buy a cute puppy. So a guy would just stop and, say something about the puppy so she can have that, so.
That's definitely the case. Because when I walk around in New York, I don't try not to talk to really anybody.
Yeah.
But when I used to live with my ex and we had the dogs, I would walk the dog and it just opens up. People just walk,
Yeah.
oh my God, what's the dog's name? Can we pet her? Blah, 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 blah. And it's so weird you bring up the dog park thing because that's something I never thought of until you just mentioned it. I went to the dog park with Maya probably twice a week, and I would not speak to the other dog owners. And their dogs, and this is what I meant by like assholes, is our dog Maya is about 100 pounds. Like she's a very big dog. You've seen her before.
Yeah.
And their like little yappy dogs would come over and start sniffing and like nipping at her. And then when Maya would be like, basically like, get the fuck away from me, like bark or like turn, the owners would be like, excuse me, can you get your dog? And I go, your dog started. Just because my dog can eat your dog doesn't mean like I'm responsible for this.
Yeah.
Like your dog came up and started this shit. And I would never, she would play with other dogs and I would just kind of look at their owner and do the like, yeah. And then just go back to watching the dog. Like I wanted no interaction with those people.
And we know at the dog park, I'm sure you know every dog's name.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
I don't know any of the owners.
Right. No
And
owners.
I would see the owners on the street because obviously we all live in the area without our dogs.
Right.
And there's no recognition. And I'm from the South, so sometimes I'd be like, oh, hey. And they would just keep walking. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I feel the same way. I shouldn't have even said hi. You're right.
I was walking down the sidewalk one time and I'm cool with dogs, but one thing that like drives me batshit crazy is when people don't put leashes on their dogs.
I can't stand it.
Because they think their dog is special. Mm-hmm. And my dog always listens to me. It's this whole mentality. Like I'm in a superior relationship.
It's the person that's special.
The laws, laws don't apply to me. And so I'm walking down the sidewalk and the dog just comes up to me and I just stop. Because I make no movements.
Right.
And the dude's just like, he's not going to bite. And I'm like, well, I don't know him.
Right, exactly.
I don't know the dog.
Yeah.
And he just totally treated me like I was the biggest stick in the mud, the biggest pain in the ass. And it's like, dude, the fucking laws apply to you too.
Right.
So there was this park that we used to skateboard at up in Los Angeles, and dogs would like constantly be running after us, and it just drove me insane. There's just some. I feel like Costanza.
Yeah.
Like we're living in a society here.
I love that mic control you just said. That was good.
Why don't the rules apply to you?
Yeah.
I'm not into people.
We saw that. We all saw that the first time we all got together to talk about this very podcast. Do you guys remember?
No, I don't.
We went to the coffee shop and then we went to that little park in Brooklyn and there was that crazy lady who had her dog and she was screaming. You don't remember this?
I do now, but tell me.
But so the dog's off the leash and an older woman was like, hey, your dog's off the leash. And obviously this woman who owned the dog was mentally unstable because she started like screaming like, it's my dog. It listens to me.
Right.
It doesn't need a leash. And the older woman was just like, no, but you need to have your dog on a leash. And she like snapped and was like unhinged. And I remember the three of us just kind of looked at each other and looked at her and we're like, yeah, we need a positive podcast out there. Something's very wrong with the world.
A podcast was born.
Yeah.
Wasn't the dog yelling as well?
The dog was barking and I think it was either Matt or Dan, one of you guys turned and was like, well, obviously she doesn't have that dog under control because the dog was like freaking out.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the saddest things I ever saw was two homeless people arguing, and they both had dogs, and the dogs were barking at each other. I was like,
God.
this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is a bad scenario.
You can't afford food, but you can feed your dog. It's
There's a guy when I go to the gym, he has a sign, and the sign literally says the dog comes first.
Oh,
which
that's nice.
which is admirable.
That's sweet.
But at the same time, it's just like
That's sweet. That's very sweet.
Yeah.
Good thing Daniel don't own that dog. 'Cause he'd eat it. The dog, and then the vegetables.
Did I tell you? Did I tell you guys the time I saw in Greenpoint? I forget what we talk about, but the time I saw a lady who had her cat on a leash.
No.
But not the dog. And the cat.
This does sound familiar.
And the cat was sitting in a stroller, and it was on a leash. And then, but not the dog. And then she, for whatever reason, she unleashes the cat, and the cat goes sprinting, disappears. She has a panic attack in the middle of McGulrick Park in Brooklyn and Greenpoint. She is screaming frantically, running for the cat, but then her dog is there, so she can't leave the dog. And then as she starts running, the dog starts running the other way.
Oh, God.
So she is screaming and crying and very frantic, and nobody moved. Just everyone just watched. I told my wife, so listen, just it's because I was with my kids. I was like, stay with them. I'm gonna. She needs help.
Yeah.
So she's frantic, and she's in the middle of the park, and she doesn't know what to do anymore because she went back for her dog because she knew where she could get the dog back.
Yeah.
And then she says, I said, listen, just take a deep breath. You're gonna find your cat. I promise you. I had no fucking clue. I had no clue, but I just trusted that. I said, you will find your cat.
Well, I
Go
think,
for the cat.
I think that's a smart thing to do too, because it reduces the panic, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's more of a chance that you'll find the cat when you're
Right.
thinking clearly.
Yeah. Absolutely. I said, I have your dog. I'm going to keep your dog. Just go for the cat. And then she says, okay, thank you. I said, take a deep breath and go. And 5 minutes later, she finds the cat. She comes back, and she's very grateful. And she says, "Oh my God, I love this community.
Yeah.
I love this." I'm like, "This community did nothing for you. I'm not part of this Greenpoint community. I'm from Astoria, and Astorians help each other, but people in Greenpoint do not care."
Oh no.
But it was.
I was one of those guys.
I'm just going to stand around and watch it burn with everybody else.
Once I saw you helping, I was like, put my cap down. Like, I hope Daniel doesn't ask me to help. I'm a Greenpoint resident.
We never tell this story.
I've got things to do.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting though? That there, I think there's kind of a judgment of positive thinking, because it's like it sounds cosmic,
Right.
And it sounds like you're willing something to happen, when it's really much more of a rational process. It's like,
What do you mean?
well, in this scenario,
Right.
as I touched on a little bit before, it's like, okay, you're panicking. You're in the park. But you say to her, you're going to find your cat. And she, on some level, says, I'm going to find my cat. And then she can calm the fuck down, and all of a sudden it's not as urgent. So there's more time for the cat to come back. And there's less of a chance that she's going to go wander off, or she's going to go or she's going to operate in panic mode. So like her thinking positive had a practical application.
Yeah,
Right.
Because the other thing too is when you're hyped up, your pet can feel your hype, and they'll panic. Because I know I had to have told this story, but Maya got off the leash one time in New York. We got her a new vest, one that was like more comfortable for her. Didn't realize that she could slip out of it like fucking Houdini. So I'm walking her. We're going for a walk. She takes a poop. I go to clean up the poop, and as I'm cleaning it up, she like just cocks back a little. And when she does that, she notices the vest like almost comes off. So she's like, "Oh, I'm out of here.
I can do this.
Yeah." So she cocks back, and then she just slips it. And we were an avenue away from our apartment. And she knows that she's a very intelligent dog. So she's like, "Fuck this. I'm going home," and just takes off for the apartment. And initially I panic and I start screaming like, Maya. And because I was screaming and elevated, she freaked out. So she like stopped for a split second, turned, and if I was just calm and I was like, all right, come here, like relax, come on.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was freaked out. So I screamed, and then she got spooked because I screamed again and turned around and just took off towards the house. The only thing that was like a saving. Like people were trying to help, like you could tell, but she's a huge dog. So people were like in the middle of the sidewalk, but as she comes closer, they like move out of the way, and I'm like, she's not. I'm like yelling, she's not gonna bite. She's not. Just tackle her. But she's running towards Second Avenue, which is a busy intersection,
of course.
and she has to go through Second to get to our apartment on the corner. And I'm like, she's just gonna run through the street,
and everybody's going, I'm not getting burned by that one again.
Yeah. I'm like, she's going to run through the street. And then luckily, like as she came to the crosswalk, it was almost like a universe thing where she comes to the crosswalk and then immediately the crosswalk turns. So all the cars stop and she, no hesitation or anything, just sprints through the crosswalk and then ran to the front door and just sat down. Well, that was the thing, was it was a time, like she was going to run either way, whether there were cars or no cars. But luckily the timing was perfect.
Unreal.
And I'm like, but it's what you're saying, like, and then I told Savannah, and she was like, you can't yell. And I go, our 100-pound dog just got off the leash and we've been in Manhattan for like 3 months. Like I didn't know what else. Like I was like, I panicked. She goes, you can't yell. And it's exactly to your point. She was like, if you just talk to her calmly, she'll realize nothing's wrong and she's fine. Yeah. But because I was like, Maya, she was like, fuck this, I'm out, and just took off.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that when you're in need,
right,
she's going to be gone.
When you're in a full panic, she's like, no, I'm out, bye.
I need to be in a more positive environment.
It is weird, their memories.
Safer environment.
Yeah, and it, you know, it's so true what you say, like what people tell you in a moment of panic. And I don't know why this story just popped in my head, but when I was 16, I got arrested for a stupid thing for like
Here we go.
This is a
now we're going.
The onion is
I got
peeling.
my stories. I got arrested, but this is stupid. I got arrested for shooting water balloons off a building. It was a pretty high building, but then I got arrested, and the only reason they brought they brought us in is because my buddy, he was 17 and I was 16, so since he was like closer to 18, they were like, all right, we're going to bring you in. They handcuffed us, put us in the back of it was ridiculous. But mind you, we were on the intersection of Blurry and St. Catherine, which is like the heart of downtown Montreal. And we saw like 8 cop cars. The whole street was like completely jammed. And then I got arrested. They called our parents. I was in the police station, and my buddy Dominic, they called his mom. They said, yeah, just send him home. But not my parents, no, we're going to come get him. And so I had to wait in the police station while I and my dad used to hit me a lot, and my mom, extremely strict, Polish. So I was by far more terrified. Mind you, we weren't 16, 17. I'm sorry, we were 14, 15. We were 14, 15. And I was more terrified of my parents, especially my mom and my dad. My dad, God. So then it was weird. My parents, I see them come. I'm sitting alone. And for whatever reason, the door was locked. So they couldn't come in. So I had to get up and open the door for them and welcome them into the police station. And my mom just gives me this look, man. Like if I was going to kill, really. And my dad, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get the beating of my lifetime. And he said in a very calm voice, he said, you okay? I said, yeah. He said, did they hit you? What? He's like, did they hit you? I said, no, they didn't. I was like, okay. And I knew he meant like his first concern was like, only I can hit you, But it was really, it came from like very deep love that nobody hurts my kid. And that was his first initial thought and feeling, which, one moment one of the moments I'll remember, having with my dad forever was him having that calming voice and surprising me. Like out of nowhere, just, it really moved me, man. And I got really connected with my dad at that moment.
Did you get ass whooping when you got home?
Nope.
That's good.
Nope, nothing. But my mom was, she,
I could see you in the jail being like, you don't have to call my parents. I'll stay here. You don't even have to call them. I'll just-
right.
What's the sentence? 10 days? I'll just stay here for 10 days.
But in all fairness, they were assholes. When they called my house, they said, "Are you the mother?" My mom picked up the phone. Are you the mother of Daniel? And she says, "Yes." It's like, "This is the police." She says, "Okay, what happened?" And they wouldn't tell her what happened. They would just ask her like 10 questions to confirm my identity. And my mom, who suffers from anxiety, just she got on
freaking
panic
out.
mode
Right,
because she's not getting the information.
Yeah.
So in all fairness, that drove her crazy.
Well, it could be anything. You could be
I
the
could
victim
dead.
of a crime.
I could be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I had the same, not the same experience, but I had a similar experience the first or second time I got arrested where I was on my own at that point. I was, 21, living in South Florida, going to college. So I just didn't, I didn't call anybody. Like, I was just like, I guess I'm just going to wait this out. But then the time where I got arrested, where I was actually going to do an extended period of time, I was like, well, I have to call and let my parents know, because if they try to get a hold of me, you can't. And I'll never forget, I was so nervous to call my dad because we had kind of, at that point, we had kind of an estranged relationship, and I just didn't want to disappoint him. And I'll never forget, I called and he said the same thing. He goes, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted you to know what happened." He goes, "As long as you're okay, that's all I care about." And I was like, what?
Right.
I thought you were going to scream at me and how could you do this and all that. Yeah. And he was like, "No, as long as you're okay." Because I think there's a big difference.
There's a huge difference
between child antics, in getting grounded or getting yelled at or getting whipped or whatever, and life and death. Once you're arrested and in a jail, with people who are capable of God knows what, then it kind of the switch flips, and it's like, okay, well now, it's one thing smoking weed with your buddies in the back, but it's a whole other thing when you're in a cell with people who are convicted of all sorts of crime. I don't want you to die.
It's out of everyone's control at that point.
Yeah.
And your dad knows his intentions with you.
Mm-hmm.
Might not be exactly the proper way to treat you all the time that he does, but the state or the county doesn't give a fuck about
exactly.
you. And they'll play games with your life.
Mm-hmm.
And
they don't care.
They don't care. It's sport.
Yeah.
It's like gaming sport.
Yeah,
how many people they put away means something to them.
Yeah.
And they don't care who they put away.
Right. Or for
some
what,
days.
yeah.
It's just a sport.
And being in that moment where he was like,
"Yeah,
are you okay?" It's the same thing. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good."
Right.
And I was like, "I'm really good now." I feel better.
Yeah.
I was working in Calgary one time, and I was waiting for the club owner to pick me up because he's such a piece of shit.
He's your dad?
He let me know. He's very far from my father. This guy's fucking. I do not like this guy, let alone love this guy. But I'm sitting there waiting for. It's like being not picked up at soccer practice or something. You're like,
right.
And I'm about to do a 6-day week at a club I don't even want to do, and the fucker can't even pick me up on time. And this Canadian cop rolls up to me, and he's got the Yogi Bear hat on or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's asking me all these questions, and I've already gotten through customs, and he's just like, "What are you doing here? What's your intentions here? What do you?" And I'm just so suspicious. As an American, I'm suspicious. I don't like answering questions from cops. I'm here. I'm working. What do you work for? I'm a comedian. I'm not giving him. I am giving him more than I want to, but I'm looking at him "What's the deal, dude? I just got through customs."
Right.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me
"How'd you get through customs?"
Yeah. This guy's suspicious, And then he turns around and starts walking away, and his jacket says something like "welcoming committee." And that's just so foreign to me.
Unwelcoming.
Yeah, that's just so foreign to me as a comedian.
Right.
As an American. I was when the cops start asking questions, that's when you stop talking.
Yeah, you lock up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed how many people don't know that. How many people don't know that you don't have to answer police officers' questions?
Oh, yeah. I've got a bit about it. I know Segura has that bit about 48 hours where he's like, just talk to the cops. You're about to do 25 to life. I know. I have a bit where we used to watch cops when I was incarcerated for a long time. We would watch cops like ex-athletes watch sports.
Yeah.
And you just critique the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
you idiot. Like, you don't throw the drugs out the window. You eat the drug. Like, come
Yeah.
on. And the same thing. Like, they talk to the cops, and we're all looking at each other in the cell, in the TV room. All these convicts looking at each other like, what the fuck's this idiot doing? Like, you don't talk to the cops. Like, you don't say anything.
I can't even handle there's a lot of television shows I can't watch because they just start talking to the cops. And I start screaming at the TV, lawyer!
Yeah.
Lawyer!
Yeah.
God damn it!
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
Well, black people in America have, they all sound like they have a law degree. Like they know their laws when it comes to
Yeah.
getting stopped by. And, I didn't even know about maybe 10 years ago. I found out about asking a badge number, having the right to ask and their obligation to give.
To respond.
Yeah. And like, how are we supposed to know these things unless
I was taught in school, but I can't believe how many people weren't, because I think a lot of people think that when the cops ask you a question, you have to answer it.
Right.
When the cops knock on your door, you have to let them in, because I think we learn our rights on television rather than reality.
Right.
And it's not because I don't think the TV shows want to mislead you. I just think if people exercise their rights, there'd be no story on the TV.
Right.
Well, that's the other thing too, is it goes back to just because I went to a school outside of Daytona, which is not, it's a kind of a poverty area, but I grew up upper middle class, like just outside of there. So I was able to see both ends of the spectrum, where like in the neighborhood I grew up in with a lot of the kids I grew up with, it's like, yeah, you talk to the police are here to help you, obviously. Like for, what I look like, that's exactly what you would assume.
Right.
But then I played sports, and a lot of my friends lived in like the bad parts of Daytona, and they're like, no, you never, like I know, like just what you're saying, like as a kid, they're like, no, you never talk to the police.
Right.
Like ever, under any circumstance. And it was just that weird dynamic where, and I know, society talks about this all the time, but this perpetual cycle where it's like, yeah, certain people know that, and it's sad, but it's because of the environment they come in, they have to know that. And then there's other people like me where it's like, oh no, of course you talk to the police.
Right.
It took me getting arrested like 5 or 6 times before I was like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then I finally learned like, oh yeah, you don't say.
There's this idea that if you cooperate with them, that they're going to
help
like
you out, yeah.
And they even tell you that. I can't help you unless you're honest with me. Bull fucking shit.
Yeah.
That's exactly how they're going to fuck you.
That's how I got my first DUI.
Yeah.
Come on, man. We saw you leave the bar. Just be honest with us. Yeah, I had a couple of drinks.
We'll go easy.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll go easy on you if you're honest.
Yeah.
That's the mentality.
And the hilarious thing, the most ironic thing, and the most fucked up thing about the whole situation, the cops arresting you, this is for everyone listening, the police arresting you have nothing to do with the sentencing at all.
Nothing
at
to do.
all.
That's just what I was going to say.
The charges, the whole thing, they write the police report and then they'll book you on whatever they book you on. It's the state prosecutor who comes up with the final charges.
Right.
But isn't it based on?
So they read the police report and then they go, okay, this is what we're going to charge you with. So it doesn't matter if I said no, if I just didn't say anything, or I said I had 10 beers or 100 beers. In the police report, it'll just say suspect admitted he was intoxicated. And then that's what they go on.
Yeah.
Or like it's bananas to me where people will now, after all my experience, where people will cooperate with the police thinking it's the cops' jurisdiction to be like, all right, well, we were going to charge you with assault, but we'll knock it down. And I mean, yeah, given when they book you, they can do that.
Yeah.
But it's the state prosecutor who has the final say in all this.
Right.
They read over the report, then they go, oh, no, this is actually what we're going to charge you with. But if you want to take a plea deal, because they need all the guilt, like you were just talking about, they need people to fill the jails.
Yeah.
If you want to take a plea deal, we'll knock it down to reckless driving instead of, instead of driving while intoxicated.
Yeah.
Like they have that right. So anyone listening, just don't talk to the police.
Never talk. You don't have to answer any questions. You don't have to let them search.
Unless someone breaks into your own place.
Yeah.
And then, you want to talk to the police.
Then you might have. If Henry Rollins and Sons of Anarchy taught us anything, it's you never talk to the cops.
Yeah.
That's what he tells his 2-year-old son in the show.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
fuck yeah, Henry Rollins.
I love Henry Rollins.
I was explaining to someone who's very wealthy about Miranda rights. very educated person.
They had no idea.
No,
of course,
fucking clue.
Oh, who's Miranda? Let's start with that.
Well, Arizona, 1967. I actually know this.
I know this too. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my general knowledge of it.
Okay.
Someone was arrested without their rights being read. You have the right to remain
Right.
silent. You have the right to an attorney. And somehow that was the case that made a law go into effect that these rights needed to be explained, which is hilarious because they do explain them to you. And if they don't explain them to you, it's a technicality. You can get off if they don't explain it to you.
It was Miranda
how do you-
versus the state of Arizona. She
how
was
do you
arrested and
prove-
incriminated herself.
How do you prove that they didn't read you the rights? Isn't
Nowadays
it one word
you
against another?
Nowadays, you actually can. They would have to produce the footage from their body
body
cams
cams.
Right.
that they did.
But
right?
back then,
It would be your word against the cops, and then the partner. And the thing is obviously they can just lie.
right.
The problem that, as someone who used to lie a lot, especially in my active addiction, the problem you can get into is if you lie and then you get caught in the lie, as the officer, you're fucked. Like, you lose your pension, you lose all your rights. So it's like, do I want to risk literally the rest of my life, my pension, my retirement, the whole thing
For this misdemeanor.
For this one, yeah, exactly, for this one little thing? Because you don't know if your partner's going to be on board. Your partner might be like, I don't want to lose my pension. Yeah,
Right.
he didn't read the rights.
Yeah.
But it was an actual Supreme Court case in 1967. It was this woman who was arrested in Arizona, and that no one told her anything, so she incriminated herself, which goes against the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, was self-incrimination. And she had no idea that she had any of these rights whatsoever. And so it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and that's where the name comes from. It was Miranda versus the state of Arizona, the Miranda Rights.
That is what's funny about it. It's like you have all these rights, and then the game begins.
Yeah.
The cops try to
Intimidate you.
see what you don't know, and try to work around it for like almost like sport, almost like as a job. Whereas in a perfect society, it'd be like, they have these rights. I'm not going to infringe upon these rights.
They go out of their
But
way to do
they do it, and they ask questions like, "Can I search your car?" And you have a tendency, if you're an honest person or whatever kind of person you are, to go, "I have nothing to hide. You can search my car."
But then you don't know if they can plan something.
They
for
can plan
whatever-
something,
right.
or they might find something you don't know is
Right.
illegal, or
Right.
they could just.
Well, and it goes against everything. And this is going to be the second week in a row where I get on a high horse. It goes against everything as an American. It goes against everything. And I'm not some conservative Alex Jones whack job.
Sure.
But as someone who is going to go to law school, as someone who studied political science, I love this stuff. Like I told you guys before, when the January 6th thing happened, I was like crying watching the TV. Like,
Yeah.
it's over, the whole
Right,
thing's
right.
over. But the idea that this country that's been the model of democracy for so long and is founded on the idea of freedoms, you're just going to let this guy, with no probable cause, just search your shit. Because as a person who has nothing to hide, you're like, yeah, I don't care, do
Right.
it. It's not the fact that you have nothing to hide. It's the fact that they're searching it in the first place that should piss everyone off.
Yeah, and I like the term exercise your right.
Yeah.
Because an exercise is not always goal oriented. It's like, I'm going to do this as a practice. Like almost as a rehearsal. I'm
Yeah.
going to exercise my rights. I don't really need my rights right now, but I'm going to use them anyway.
Yeah, what is it?
I'm going to get in the habit of using my rights.
Yeah, because I've heard people be like, oh, they should put cameras everywhere because if you have nothing to hide. It's like, yeah, but land of the free. Land of the free, home of the brave.
It's not land of the free.
No,
It is
I
not.
completely agree with you.
It's an
but it's
ideal. What you said,
supposed to
perfect.
be.
Yes,
We're
What's
saying
supposed to be in it
we're
is an
saying,
ideal.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I'm not that off the mat. But what I'm saying is, when you have the ability to exercise those rights, as Matt's saying, you should 100% take it. It's not the land of the free. I was arrested for resisting arrest without violence with no other charge. Fun fact, it was dropped because you can't resist arrest unless you're being arrested for something. But the cops still arrested me. And people go all the time, well, the charge was dropped. I go, it still ruins your fucking night to get arrested.
Right.
Like, you still get booked. You still have to sit in jail. Like, you still have to go in front of the judge. Like, your next 24 hours is shot.
Right.
So even though the charges, but you know,
24 hours.
Your hard outs
Right.
don't mean a thing.
yeah, but that's the thing so I understand. Obviously, it's not a perfect system, and we've seen that time and time again. I mean, that kid in Tennessee was just basically executed. But the thing is when you have the opportunity to take advantage of your God-given civil rights, you have to act on it. In my opinion, because give me freedom or give me death. What does New Hampshire say?
Live free or die.
Yeah, Delaware.
So
it's one of those little states that no one cares about. They're like, live free or die. It's like, all right, calm down, Delaware.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you remember them.
That's the only reason.
Right?
I talk about this as much as possible because I'm disturbed how many people don't know about it,
About
about your rights as an American.
Do you guys have this in Canada? Like this whole us against them with the police?
well, a lot of that happened politically, especially after what was happening with Wallace.
I don't know that one.
With what's his name?
George Floyd?
Yeah, why did I say Wallace?
don't
George
know.
Floyd. Yeah, who was I thinking of? Anyways, George Floyd. So yeah, there's definitely that movement but I think that propagated throughout the whole world, especially in North America. But there is way more, and there is segregation in Canada. There is division, but it doesn't even come close to the States.
Okay.
It does not come like here. You come to New York, and you see what you think might be a melting pot when you're walking down the streets of Manhattan, but it's
not.
nothing's melted.
Nope.
Everyone, like if you go to Queens or Brooklyn and you have your Irish communities and neighborhoods and Greeks, and you have your Italians and African Americans, and it's so segregated. It is very segregated. There's even a street in my neighborhood. Astoria is known to be very Greek, way less than before, but still mainly a Greek neighborhood. Now there's a lot of Croatians, a lot of everything. But there's one street called Steinway, and you go down Steinway, and it's called Little Egypt. And you only see, it's like a Muslim community, and you only see like fantastic, great restaurants, a Moroccan, Egyptian. I got to take you to some places. You're
Daniel's
gonna
List.
get blown away.
Subscribe on Patreon.
Right.
Get Daniel's
comes
List.
out.
Only the
I can see
exclusive.
Daniel. I can see Daniel in the back of a cop car. Oh,
Guys, have you ever eaten here?
there's a great Bolivian place right here.
But it is truly, you forget you're in Astoria. And it's literally like 3 blocks, and you do not recognize Astoria. And so that was the weird feeling when I moved to New York. It's as much as there's a plethora of diversity and ethnicities, there is no true melting. And you do see that in Canada, however. Like in Montreal, everyone's like, all my friends are mixed. I'm mixed. My wife's mixed. My friends are. Everyone speaks French, English, because we have to, plus whatever language your parents speak, because they're mainly immigrants. So you're in a pool of you're swimming in a pool of cultures, and it's so enriching. But here, it's even Puerto Ricans don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
Puerto Ricans don't speak Spanish. Puerto Ricans don't speak Spanish.
I like this hot new take.
No, but it's I'm gonna get blasted for this. But
That's kind of different than what most Americans say. So roll with it.
No, but all my Puerto Rican friends, they know it. They laugh at it because there was so much segregation when Puerto Ricans came that to be on the safe side and to protect your children, they would tell their kids do not speak Spanish. They would only speak English to them. They would give them American names like Corey and Jessica, and and they would do everything and from love, from a place of love, to protect them, so they can integrate. And because of that, they suffered and they lost a part of their culture. Right. And I feel like Dominicans are more connected to that. They're all the Dominican friends that I have here that I know in New York, they're all very fluent in Spanish.
Oh yeah.
But all my Puerto Rican friends, they barely speak.
Well, you're looking at a guy. I mean, my dad doesn't speak French. His father was born in France, and it just
so he's
stops.
first generation, and
it
he
just stops right there. Wow. And it's for the same reason. You want to fit in, want to succeed, and this is a lower stakes. This is living in the suburbs of New Jersey and working in New York. But there's still this assimilation where, and I was offered it in school, and I still didn't take it like a fool because I didn't want to be quizzed at Christmas dinner when I came up to visit, which is so stupid. So my grandfather was born in France.
Wow. What part?
I don't even know. I don't know anything about France.
So you have family.
I went to Paris, and they hated me.
But you met your family in France?
I've met some of them, and they hated me too because I was American. They told me to stop chewing so fast. Like then they were ready to tell me to stop chewing so fast. You know what I mean? They were looking for it.
But that's
and they're
just-
like, hey, you
right.
fucking
No,
piece of shit,
but
American.
you know that's not even the issue. That's just an excuse. That
I knew.
right.
I knew
It has
exactly
nothing to do with my chewing.
I knew exactly what conversation we were having.
Right.
Yeah, and they learned English just to tell me.
I found it because I'm second generation.
Just to spite me. God damn it.
But there are pockets like my grandparents on my dad's side are from former Yugoslavia, and they were pockets when they moved to Ohio. There were pockets of immigrants from those areas that they would help. So they both obviously, like my grandmother speaks like 7 languages, and it was very growing up. She would always try to say like basic words. And the former Yugoslavia, it's Croatia, Serbio-Croat is the name of the language. She would always try to say certain words so we would know. God forbid if we were dropped in the middle of the former Yugoslavia, we could find our way out. Like, eat, bathroom, liar was a big one for me.
Right.
But she spoke that all the time. So I find that so fascinating with what you're saying because it's true. At work, obviously, I work with people from all sorts of different. I know how to say thank you now and Bengali and Hindi and all this stuff because I want to communicate with my fellow coworkers as comfortable as they are. But it's interesting because the few Puerto Rican guys that I work with don't really speak Spanish,
and it's cool.
And the Dominican bartender,
fluent.
Fluent.
And it's cool. And it's cool when you meet a Puerto Rican that does speak Spanish because, and it's also generational. It's like the older Puerto Ricans that I know do speak Spanish, but the younger ones don't. But now there's this new wave of Puerto Ricans who really want to keep their culture and it's cool when you see someone who their parents fought for that. Their parents fought to, in spite of everything. They're like, it's part of you, and don't lose that.
Yeah,
and it's so important. But it's such a sad, true depiction of the world that we live in. That just to be safe, and the Japanese had to go through the same thing. Moving to America, Italians had to go through the same thing. We won't speak Italian. It's just to fit in, and then when you meet an Italian American who tells you he's Italian, you're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, right.
You are nothing.
There's a huge difference.
You are not Italian. I'm from a Hoboken. It's like there's no.
There's a great episode of The Sopranos about that. They all want to go to Italy, and then when they go to Italy, they realize they're not Italian.
Yeah, right.
They don't like the food.
No, right.
Their words are like, they're slang. American slang.
Yeah. Totally.
One time I was crossing the street and it did that thing where, if sometimes you have someone to the right of you and they want to kind of cut the crosswalk, but you want to walk straight.
Right.
And so we kind of got caught up a little bit, like almost bumping into each other. And the woman just starts yelling at me in Polish. And I just go, I feel the same way about you.
Because it's not the words, it's the energy.
It's the energy,
The energy behind the words, man.
Yeah.
That's why I was always able to pick out when my grandmother would start yelling. The one word I could always pick out was lazish, which means lies. Did you finish your homework? Of course I did.
That was in Greenpoint, right? The Polish lady?
It might have been. Well, we don't have a society here, so it's just lawless chaos.
Yeah. No, but it's cool, man. I'm very, very lucky. I'm very lucky to. I spoke Polish with my grandmother. She passed away when I was 11, but she had a lot to do with raising me and having access to my dad's Peruvian culture and family. And
well, I'll tell you what's cool about it.
It's amazing, man.
Just knowing you is we can walk around the city, and if you hear someone speaking French or Spanish, it's almost like your golden ticket.
I love it.
Into something, and someone's usually very happy to because you don't look the part.
Right.
And people love to speak their language. It's like when you run into somebody at a family reunion or something who's done comedy or is a skateboarder in my case or a football player in your case, and you just get to talk shop a little bit.
Yeah,
it's kind of nice. Yeah.
That was for the listeners. We went out to a dinner at my restaurant, and one of the servers speaks French, and she never gets to speak it.
Right.
And I go, oh, you speak French. Daniel speaks, and you guys immediately started talking in French, and I was like for me that was cool because I know she knows French, but even though we work at a steakhouse in downtown Manhattan, it's a lot more, Spanish or just English than French. And so for her actually to be able to speak it with someone who's fluent in it, I was like, oh, this is cool.
And I'm just sitting there feeling the shame, chewing my steak too quickly. But I should have learned it. I offered it in school.
Yeah, it's like I almost feel like I'm often I don't want to say victim because that's a very strong word, but circumstantially I appear to be quote unquote a victim of reverse racism.
How's that?
Well, I just feel like nobody sees, because of the color of my skin, nobody sees the diversity in me.
Like that time you got in an argument with that white woman at the party. She called you white.
Oh,
she called you white.
Yeah,
and you have white perspectives.
Right.
You're
White. Yeah, white male.
Old white male.
Also saw me as a male, which was like, what's wrong with her? Yeah, but that's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's and it's strange. And we had that same, I did that comedy competition back in 2013 called NBC Diversity. And now it's called Stand Up for NBC.
Right,
now it's called Stand Up for NBC, but they removed the word diversity because that was kind of counterproductive. But so Stand Up NBC, they just wanted to push comics who had a diverse background, and they refused to see me the two first times, because they would just see
a picture. And
they would just see I would even submit my tapes. I would have Gina Brion, who won the competition, and my buddy Vlad, who made it to the top 10 of that same year, and they recommended me, and they're like, you got to see Danny, and they wouldn't see me because the audition tape that I submitted didn't talk about my background, because to me, it's it's not necessary to talk about your background if you have funny jokes.
And it can be hacky too.
Right.
It depends on how you do it.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It depends on how you do it, but yes, generally speaking, it's been overdone.
That's comedy class jokes.
Right.
I'm French and I'm Irish.
Right.
Which means I'm drunk half the time.
Right.
And then I'm drunk the other half of the time.
Right.
That's my comedy class joke.
Right.
Nailed it.
Oh man.
No. And I remember the first time I auditioned for what's that NBC show?
Last Comic Standing.
Last Comic Standing. Alonzo Bowden, because I was a newbie. I was maybe 2 years in, and this was in Montreal. There was a snowstorm. Snow was maybe 2 feet high. I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make it to the venue at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I stood in the cold from 5, I think, till 11 in the morning. And then I had 2 minutes to audition. I get seen by Kathleen Madigan and Alonzo Bowden and Ant.
Right.
God, Ant was on that show.
Yeah. So they see me, and I literally what's weird. Alonzo Bowden, I drove him. There was the snowstorm started the night before, and he was headlining at the Comedy Works. And he was we both stepped out of the club, and I think I'm not sure if we gigged together or not. I forget.
Yeah.
And then I step out, and I could tell he was waiting for a cab to get to the location. So let me just give you a ride of my car. So I just drove him. And I in the back of my head, I thought this might be weird a little bit because he will be judging me tomorrow. But there's a snowstorm.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and you're Canadian.
I'll give you
do the right thing.
I'll give you. So I give him a ride, and I see him the next day. And again, I woke up at 4. I'm out in the cold for 6 hours, and then I audition. I have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, I was a very green comic, and I did the exact same opening. That very hacky. I'm half Polish, half Peruvian. I opened with that, and that was my opening line. I didn't even get to the punchline.
Yeah.
And Alonzo stops me. He's like, "I don't care what half you are. Unless you're a half gorilla, then I'm interested." And he was absolutely right.
And you were like, well, I only got a half a tank of gas because of you, motherfucker.
Right. And he was spot on, and I get that it was a television show, and I get that he was being the hard judge or whatever role he decided to play.
In real life, he would have let you figure it out on your own.
But man, just give me my 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Sure.
You can say whatever you want, man. And that just having that opening line throw you off so much.
Oh.
Like, you can't go to jokes after that.
It's also a horrible scenario for those that don't know. It's just you doing stand-up in front of 3 people.
and
whenever I did
that show
and,
too,
four,
yeah.
and 3 cameras.
When I did it, I played to the cameramen and the producers and stuff. I didn't
Right.
fuck with the people
Right.
in front. But anyways, we gotta go.
Oh.
The hour?
Yeah.
Yo, this was.
You've
this
been
was- this
listening
went
to
flying.
Pets, Cops, and Languages. Available everywhere that you can get podcasts. And thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we already got an outro. I don't have to do
Yeah,
one.
you don't have to do any of it.
Later.
All right, be good, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torado, artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe, and check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. Send us some positive vibes in the form of U.S. currency. See you next week, everybody.